Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. What a great show we have lined up tonight. And some unusual topics tonight. And if I'm going to start off a show, would you rather watch a tractor pull or the NFL Combine? You know this is going to be an interesting show for sure. But before I go out there and do that, let me go ahead and introduce the crew right to left. Candy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be on Inside the Pigskin.
Oh, Crouch, of all days for you to be here, this is it. Don't be a fool anymore. I think that's a Kenny Loggins story. Show, right? I don't know. But this is it. Glad you're here.
Absolutely. Good to see everybody.
You talk about Bo. I want to know this about Bo since he's been on this show here. He's always like my co-host of sorts, anyways, because him and I can make a pretty good 1-2 punch. I'm glad that Bo is right by me, along with everybody that participates as well. Candy, we all know you can do everything, anyways. Whether you're in the country club, you're the producer, or whatever. She's a jack of all trades. And if she's at the Super Bowl, she's a recording machine. With that said, we have the man from Pittsburgh, and there'll be a Pittsburgh topic. Don't worry, Bedford Freya. I always think about Pittsburgh topics, and you come in the broadcast.
Thanks for having me, Scott, and I appreciate the Pittsburgh topics.
Oh, no problem. Hey, I take a page out of Don Shula's book. You always try to feed your people with the strength. And if anybody knows anything about Don Shula, they'll realize it. I think he's the greatest coach of all time, but I'm partial. Covered the Miami Dolphins back in the day, and Don taught me a lot of stories which are in my book Inside the Pigskin. So with that said, let me get to the topics, and we can go from there. All right, and we'll start off with the first one. Now, Rod Peterson is a colleague of mine. He does do shows with me on the network. So when I saw this one pop up on this show, this is just too good to pass up, especially as we lead in the combine. I can rest assured tomorrow I will be so quick to share this thing. I'll tag this guy on his Twitter account. But on the Rod Peterson show, he said, I'd rather watch tractor pulls than watch the NFL Combine. Then again, my answer to that is I would rather watch the NFL Combine over the Grey Cup, because nobody knows who the players are to begin with, and nobody knows the rules, but that's subject to one's interpretation. Now, in fairness to Rod and his comment, I have to admit, though, I would only cover the NFL Combine. It may be hard to get my attention to watch it on TV because I can't even watch soccer and golf on TV. And I tell you, soccer has really emerged as an excellent sport with the star power that you have with Lionel Messi and all those guys. So, but really, when I look at shows that I can watch, golf to me is one that's a tough one to watch on TV. So, you know what, Candy, this isn't complicated. You have to research. It's simply called an opinion. So why don't you give me your thoughts about what Rod had to say on the show? I think it was pretty funny, and that's why I had to go ahead and lead off with that. Go ahead, Can.
For me, NFL Combine, give it to me every day of the week over a tractor pull. But that's just because I'm not into tractor pulls. So, if you're saying NFL Combine or even an MLB spring training game, I'll probably even say the MLB spring training game. So it just depends on what you're comparing. But for me, a tractor pull, no, I'm not interested. But that's me.
Okay. Bo, go ahead.
Yeah. What's up, Daniel? So I guess it depends on how you're approaching it. If I'm watching it on TV, I'm going to watch the Combine because I get to see the players that I'm going to be talking about all year.
Mm-hmm.
Going to a tractor pull is fun.
Right.
Because you see some weird stuff and it is entertaining. The racing is fun. The people watching is fun. But if I'm watching on TV, I'm watching the Combine. And maybe some of that is because this is what I do for a living. But at the same time, I watched it before this is what I did. So I don't know.
Well, that's fair. I mean, once upon a time, though, Rod, when he was up there in Canada with the CFL, he was a play-by-play guy for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So I certainly understand his position. I don't really particularly totally agree with tractor pulls. I've never been to one, so who am I to comment? But I just think it's an awesome topic as we lead into the Combine. I really do. So kudos, Rod, for putting that one out there so I can lead off Inside the Pigs. And now you're on the show for a really good reason, and your topic was really on par. And let's go to Eddie Prather, NFL Combine early, easily. Yeah, very hard to disagree with you there. All right, Ken, you have the last word on this.
I'll take the NFL Combine on TV, but if you're actually going to it, I'm going to the tractor pull because tractor pulls are fun to go to. They're around my area. There's a thing called the Buck that's there. There used to be bull riding, and there's all kinds of demolition derby and tractor pulls and all kinds of stuff. when I was younger, I used to go to tractor pull. Going to it is fun, but watching it on TV, it puts you asleep.
Fair enough. Next topic of the night. Shadeur Sanders will skip throwing at the NFL Combine. Deion Sanders, obviously coach him at Jackson State, and he, as well as Colorado as well. You know what? I'm going to comment on this one first. I have zero issue with it whatsoever. The guy got enough film in his last two stops at Jackson State and over at Colorado. All he has to do is go there and interview with the respective general managers, owners, coaches, and so forth, so that he can find out where he's at and how impressive they are. So interviews, no problem, especially when the guy has a lot of film. If you're a guy that doesn't have a lot of film, you need to go out there and participate in workouts. Shadeur Sanders, Deion's giving him not only good coaching advice, okay, as long as he's giving him father advice. Deion, you're on target. That's a bullseye for you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I agree with Eddie here. You need to do those things, right? You have to meet with the GM. You got to have those interviews for sure. As far as throwing, there's no upside to throwing. If you're a top 10 pick or slated to be a top 10 pick, right? He may fade, who knows? But if you're slated to be a top 10 pick, the only thing you can do is hurt your draft stock. Because think of it as Alabama versus Tulane, right? If Alabama beats the brakes off him, if he looks good in a pro day or a combine, great. You're supposed to be a top 10 pick. If you sneak out a win or you perform okay, you miss some throws, people are like, is he as good as we thought? Or what's wrong with Alabama? Or the other end where they lost to Vanderbilt. All of a sudden it's what's wrong with Alabama. So if you look bad in your pro day or at the combine, all of a sudden you start fading down a board. If you're a top 10 pick, I have no problem with you skipping some of these things. You do absolutely have to do the interviews, but I mean, realistically, going out, you can only hurt your draft stock.
Bo, quick question for you. Are they still doing the Wonderlic test at all?
I don't know. I haven't really heard anything about it this year. I know it got kind of hammered last year. Yeah. So I would be surprised if they don't. I don't think they're going to publicize it as much. It may not be every GM, but I would bet some still make it happen.
Okay, let's go to the chat room real quick. Brian Pettit, hello back to you. And Eddie Prather, if any player doesn't do the interview, it's a major red flag. No question about it, Eddie. It is a major red flag. It's just, there's all there is to it. You have to at least interview. Yes. And Dan Campbell has the best thing that you can say about it. All these combine things is just watching these guys in shorts, and that's it. He doesn't care about the whole combine itself. He really doesn't. If it's not in pads, Dan Campbell doesn't care how fast you run in just shorts and a shirt. So no, you have to interview. There's no question about someone like
this right here, though. Eddie has a point here, especially because of how bad he looked during the practices at the Senior Bowl and during the game of the Senior Bowl, right? Like he finished his year in Alabama looking terrible. Then he went on to the Senior Bowl, couldn't hit targets without defense, right? And then didn't look that great in the game. So he's going to need to come and absolutely show out at the combine to try and restore some of that draft stock because I mean, he's going to be way down the board from where he was earlier in the season and earlier in his career.
Yeah, and for those of you that are listening to the show and not watching, it's Jalen Milroe who we're talking about. Yep. But you have to show up at your pro day. You really do. There's pro day, Senior Bowl. You may get by if you have a good, decent combine, and the pro day. Those are the ones that you have to do. But Jalen Milroe is the guy that Bo was talking about. Okay, Penman.
I agree with what everybody's saying, but I have to disagree on one thing. If you're not a Colorado fan and you don't know anything about Shadeur, that gives, when you throw out a combine, it shows what you guys can do if you don't follow the team. Like I watch Michigan, but I also watch other teams. But there's always that one person out in this world that watches, like Ohio State. They just watch Ohio State and then do their yard, go to movies, do whatever, go fish and do whatever. As long as Ohio State's on, they're going to go watch Ohio State with me. Up go Michigan. But the combine shows the world, hey, I'm Shadeur. Hey, how you guys doing? Boom, boom, throw at least a little bit and then do the interviews. But since he's opting out, I agree with Eddie there. He has to do the interviews. But I'm for it, but I'm against it too because not a lot of people know who he is. If you go in the NFL, everybody's like, "Who's this?" So
I mean, the scouts are going to know. He's been
Wait,
so
yeah.
force-fed.
I'm talking about fans wise. That's watching the
Wow,
combine.
forget the
Oh,
fans.
they-
Nobody cares about
Yeah.
the fans.
That event's not for the fans, though.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I get it.
For people to watch it, but that is 100% just your final look at scouts. Like
Right.
that.
Well,
That's what it is.
Yeah, as I said, the only intrigue for me with the combine is if I went there and covered the thing, then I'm talking players,
Right.
coaches, and whatnot. That's a different story. As Rod Peterson alluded to, that between the tractor pull comparison and watching it, I have no vested interest in it. It's not going to tell me any more or less I haven't known, especially with all the draft experts. As we go deeper into the draft process, I have a lot of notes from the NFL
too.
Well, that's it. I have a lot of notes from NFL communications, which I'll be able to pass on later on. Right now, we're just talking about preliminary. All right, Katie, you have the last word on this.
Let's face it, the scouting combine runs February 27th through March 2nd. We all, whether you're a fan or not, if you're interested in the scouting combine, you're more than just a typical fan. And you've seen these top draft guys, or you either watched film, you've watched YouTube, you've watched some of these, or you've just looked up some of the stats. I mean, Sanders completed 74% of his passes for 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions in his final season at Colorado in 2024. Just that alone, like compare that to a lot of your NFL quarterbacks. And here's the thing, as an NFL scout, you have to look at who do you have on your team right now, who is out there in free agency, and who are the top draft picks, and make the best decision for your team.
Right.
You know, it's the NFL scouting combine isn't for the typical fans. I mean, most people aren't, yes, you can go watch it. You could have gotten tickets for it, but your typical fan, but for like people like us that want to talk about it, whether we are covering it or not, would it be interesting to see Sanders throw because I've never seen him in person? Sure, but I'm not going to be at the combine. So does it really make a difference to me? No. He's said he's going to be throwing at the pro day.
Right.
You've seen all kinds of film. And as long as he does, I will say a must is the interview because they need to do the interview with all these. But does it matter to me that he's going to throw in the combine? No.
All right, so let's go back to Eddie Prather for a moment. Milroe currently wouldn't be on my draft board. Remember, though, that currently means 225-25. Okay, that's today. Eddie, you're right on target. And there you go, the word on. Thank you very much for putting that on, Candy. Then we have on.
Whose team is Eddie?
I don't know. Eddie, who's your team?
Oh, I thought maybe you knew him.
No, it's not really.
Oh, okay.
Tell me.
He comes on and comments a lot, but that's it.
I got you. Well, the only reason I ask is, does his team actually need a quarterback? Because, I mean, realistically,
right,
when you look at the quarterback class, right?
He said they were the Wildcats.
Wildcats.
Well, I have to assume the Arizona Cardinals if you're an NFL guy, but okay, well, I'll take the Wildcats all day long.
So the thing about this draft class is I don't think any of them are day one starters. Now, a couple of them are going to be because of where they're going to get drafted. But okay, so you don't even need a guy. But they all of these guys would really benefit from sitting here. Like everybody that's coming out is a project to some degree. Even Ward, right?
Well, yeah, but Ward,
they should sit. They won't get to, but they should.
Yeah, Ward is the most pro-ready guy there is, but I will never debate you in a million years, Bo, that I think all quarterbacks should at least sit 1 year. And think about it, even Patrick Mahomes sat the first 15 games or 16 games until they finally put him in at the end. So everything you say, Bo, is on point. I think Ward is the most pro-ready to go, but I want to go back to it again, okay? The one thing that Sanders is to be able to get rid of
Scott,
the ball
so did Tom Brady back in the day. He sat under Testaverde for a little bit too before he came in.
Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah, that's it. Bledsoe, that's it. But he sat under him for a little bit before he came in.
No, I mean, most guys could benefit from it, but there are guys that can jump in and swing. Like they're ready to go. This class isn't that.
No, not even close. Not even with Cam Ward.
Exactly. He is the best. He is the best of them, no question.
Right, but he needs to sit a year too.
Ideally, he won't get to, but ideally, it would be better for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We're going to go to a station break real quickly. Go ahead, Candy. I got a pretty loaded topic that'll take us a little while. Unless you haven't commented on this, Candy, then you can do it. Then you go to your station.
No, I commented. I put my 2 cents in. So the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find all kinds of other writings, some pictures, plethora of other stuff. There's a link to our merchandise store as well. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights baseball, Tuesday nights football, Wednesday and Thursday nights. You just never know what we're going to be talking about. So stay tuned or tune in to find out. If you want to advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest or have show topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Okay, Scott.
All right, let's go to Eddie Prather. Jaden Daniels, the most ready quarterback from day one I've ever seen. Yeah, pretty obviously he did this year. He thought, no question, the best quarterback in the draft. So great points all the way around, Eddie. Get to see that all the time with you. The more you tune in, you keep hitting bullseyes. All right, Kirk Cousins, most likely. Destinations, Falcons, Browns, 49ers. But an update on it today. GM Terry Fontenot said they're comfortable keeping him as a backup, paying him $27.5 million in 2025, triggering a $10 million to become fully guaranteed in March 17th of 2026. Okay, you know what, Paul? I'm going to start off with you on this, okay? What are your thoughts about Kirk Cousins? Let's just say staying in Atlanta, which I think makes the most sense. He should stay there. And I think I don't know where they're talking other options would be the Browns and the 49ers. I don't see if fits either place. But all right, Bo, you can lead off with this one, please.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for him is he's going to need to go somewhere that has a fantastic offensive line. So realistically, he'd be better off to stay where he's at. Sure, he's going to be the backup, but he's going to, finish out getting his $90 million guaranteed. So not a bad way to go. If somebody wants to give him a start, I mean, it's fine. A couple of the places they've talked about, it sure seems like he'd get hurt because that wasn't the extent of the lists. It went a little bit further than that. One of them was the Giants were interested in him, and he would die game 3 behind that offensive line. So if he were to go somewhere, it's going to have to be somewhere with an elite offensive line if he's going to have any option of making an impact on the team. He's just not that mobile.
I'll tell you one thing about him. He's the best agent on the planet. Get him all the guaranteed money. He's a man so far. So I'll tell you, give me this guy's agent. All right, Penn, what are your thoughts?
He needs to stay in Atlanta because let's just face it, the Giants are 3 years behind. They need to get something to get that organization back to what it was with Eli's era. If he goes to 49ers, Brock Purdy's going to be bad at him. He goes to Cleveland, he's got Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston. They're going to be mad at him if Jameson stays. But Atlanta is where he needs to stay, and he needs to keep his $90 million and just stay happy there, and then retire as a Falcon, and then be good. So,
all right, Candy, you have the last word. And by the way, let me go back to the comments section because this another bullseye by Prather. Maybe the Rams for Cousins is Stafford's trade. It's always a possibility. Although from what I heard, the Rams are just as fine having Jimmy Garoppolo there as well. But you never know. Jimmy Garoppolo is a pretty good quarterback. He's led the 49ers to the Super Bowl, and the Rams are also familiar. But it's interesting when you throw names out there. Go ahead, Cam.
Well, I'm going to say it's going to be an interesting offseason because there's a lot of quarterbacks that are in question and that could be in flux and could be moved. And there are some that might retire. So it'll be interesting to see where all the dominoes fall. As far as Mr. Cousins, 36-year-old is set to earn $27.5 million in base salary after signing his 4-year deal. He would receive a $10 million bonus if he remains on Atlanta's roster after March 17th. Atlanta. So the problem is if they cut him, Atlanta would have $65 million in dead money in 2025 if he's released prior to June 1st. If they release him after, it would be a $40 million hit in dead money. So, as I said, I think it's going to really be interesting to see where all the dominoes will fall, where all these quarterbacks will land. Like Aaron Rodgers, is he going to get a job? Is he not going to get a job? Is he going to end up retiring? The other thing is Cousins does have a no trade clause, so he would have to approve any trades if that comes to fruition.
So Rodgers, on that note, as reported by Sports Illustrated, said he wants to go to the Rams and bring Devontae with him.
Okay, really.
Oh my goodness.
You never know. I've seen crazier things happen. I don't know if that's a Hollywood ending, but
and to get to Eddie there, who cares if Watson or
yeah,
you're not wrong. And the funny thing is they did that restructure for Deshaun, which sure makes it look like they're going to try and find a way to just get him out of there. Like the way they'd restructured that was they stretched it out over another 3 years. And that sure seems like, hey, maybe we're going to go a different route and we're just going to eat the contract because he's underperforming it so bad that Flacco looked good. And he didn't have a great, it's not like he was great there. His touchdown to interception ratio wasn't anything special. So it was just Watson's play was so bad that Flacco looked decent. So, yeah, I mean, they're moving on from him one way or another.
Hey, Brian, I wouldn't hold your breath that Gronk was coming back. You're going to hear everything. Now, they always say it's like every offseason is like silly season. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So, and this is exactly silly, especially what's going on. Hey, what's going on, Joshua Dory? Glad to have you back on the Chuck Brothers and on the Kels Brothers podcast tomorrow. Good stuff. Okay, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Okay, what since you're on the show though, Joshua, we do have something we can talk about with the Miami Dolphins, and that they're announced as a designated team for the NFL Madrid game. Candy, what are your thoughts about the Dolphins going to Madrid?
Good for them. I mean, I think obviously the NFL is branding, and NFL is trying to expand every place. And why not? They should have all the different teams. It shouldn't just be, let's face it, the Jaguars are always in London because that saved the Jaguars franchise. We can say that. I mean, I remember going to covering the Jags for years when the upper deck, they would cover with seat coverings because they couldn't sell them. So then they were overseas. So the international market is here to stay. Let's face it. The NFL is not going to stop doing it. So they're going to keep expanding. You might as well put different teams out there. Why not Miami?
Edmund?
I think it'll be good for the NFL, what Candy said, just to get more teams, expand the NFL a little bit. I think it'll be a good place. Miami's a populated state, so we'll just see what happens. Be good. Could be an area.
What about you, Bo?
No, I mean, it obviously makes sense because Spain has two teams in the European Football League anyway. They have one in Madrid and one in Barcelona. So, I mean, football is there. And the European League is actually doing quite well. Germany has a few teams. So, I mean, it makes complete sense that they would be over there.
Well, the only thing I'll say about it is Dolphins have star power. Whether they get in the playoffs or not, it's another story. Tyreek Hill will certainly put butts in the seat, rear ends in the seats, and they have Tua Tagovailoa. See what goes on there. So you can have star power with the Dolphins. Again, they put up stats. The only problem is they just don't get in the playoffs. It's been a while, and I think the longer, if they don't make the playoffs, it's going to lose it. It's going to continue to get more difficult. Not every show is going to be a marathon.
They are getting closer though. They're missing by a game or two.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing
they have to get in the tournament. We're always close.
Because there's only ever one game in these locations, right. you could put the worst teams over there. It wouldn't matter. They sell out because it's their only opportunity to see it, which is why whenever you see the camera pan, it's every jersey from every team because these guys get one shot at the NFL coming to town. So it could be the worst game possible. People are going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was down in Mexico City sold out in 5 minutes.
Well, I'll go back to what Candy said. We covered the Jaguars. Not only did they play one, but play 2 games there, and that's how they made money. That's a small market. Until they're able to get their situation where they can make money there, they Shad Khan depended on those overseas games. So
Right.
there's no question about it. But you're right, Paul. I mean, think about it. You have 32 jerseys out there in those European markets or Brazil, Mexico, wherever they put these games. So there's no question everybody makes out, the NFL internationally, and the teams will make out financially. It's a that's why do you think they want to add that 18th game, because so they can add more international games. That'll be another topic for a night, but that's why they want to do it. And let's face it, these teams know there's a lot of boatload of money, and they keep doing it. But we won't get into the 18th game. There's plenty of time. We're going to prove to everybody that these shows don't have to be marathons, and this one will definitely not be, because we got one more topic, and I'll have some final thoughts about Wayne Fonts. So with that said, Justin Fields most likely destination, the Steelers, or possibly the Jets. You know what, Mr. Pittsburgh, we're going to let you start off on this one. Do you like Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, or do you think he's going to end up someplace else?
I've been saying this all off season. He should be there at least 1 year and then draft a quarterback and then mentor that whoever they draft a quarterback and teach them the system. This whole Stafford Rodgers whole thing situation, get the old heads out of Pittsburgh. We don't want the old heads. We want a franchise quarterback that can last 15, 20 years like Ben Roethlisberger and then go out to the sunset. If he wins 2, that's fine, but get us a new franchise quarterback. Justin Fields, before he got pulled, he was 4-2, and he had really good stats. Why don't you just leave him in there? He needs to be there. At least give him a chance, like Eddie said there. Just give him one more chance, and if he fails in 25, there's always a better draft. There's better quarterbacks in the draft next year. Get one, and then Justin Fields will teach him, and then he can get traded in 26, 27.
Okay, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you still don't really know what Fields is, right? Like, they never really let this guy throw downfield, and not that he's been incredibly accurate in either location, right? And yeah, he was winning games, but he wasn't really winning games, right? Like, that defense was winning games. There was scoops and scores and pick sixes. I mean, he was on the field when the teams won, but they weren't winning because of Fields. I mean, he was able to do just enough. But that being said, you kind of need to know what you have in him. Right. Yeah. And so the way that they declined his 5th-year option is, kind of alluded to the fact that they think they can bring him back for cheaper than what that 5th year would have been. And so why not? Why not give it a shot? I mean, you don't have a better option, right? You could bring Russ back. You can get a broken down Cousins or a Rodgers that hasn't looked good in 4 years. It's not like there's great opportunities out there. If you wanted to spend some money, I guess you could go get Darnold. But I mean, nobody looks fantastic. So giving Fields a real shot, why not?
Back to the chat room, we'll go to Candy after that. Fields should be given a chance for season. No question about it, Eddie. Bingo. Cyberuski, glad you can join tonight. I would definitely watch Actor Pope. Combine. Hey, that's a good question. I appreciate you chiming in. I think that's probably, split down the middle with us, but I think it was a great topic by Peterson to mention it on his show, and it gave us a little bit of fun to work with tonight. Rodgers personality wouldn't fit in a blue-collar city like Pittsburgh. Eddie, I'm going to let you leave it out there, but we're not going to talk about it tonight. We'll dedicate a segment to that as well. But thanks for bringing it up. You probably put together one segment for a future show, but we'll make sure your opinion's out here for tonight's purposes. Okay, Candy.
One of the things we've talked about numerous times on shows is that you have to have consistency with your players and your coaches. And let's face it, they brought in Fields, but they also brought in Wilson. So here you have 2 quarterbacks that were like, okay, who's going to start? Who's not going to start? Who's taking all the first team reps, especially in the first in the training camp and all of that. And I think because you had such a disarray and didn't know who was truly going to be number one for all of this, who the coaches were working with, that I think you didn't give either of them necessarily the fair shot that maybe they both deserved. So if you think going forward, one of them gives you the better chance, then go with them. But you've got to, from the start, come out and say, you know what, you are our starter. We're going to work with you. We're going to be behind you. we're going to give you the O-line that you need, because we've all seen that the O-line needs to be improved. That's going to protect any quarterback. I don't care what quarterback you are. I don't care if you're a Brady or if you're Jaden Daniels or Hurt, any of them. They all need a good offensive line.
Or me.
And so you need to start there, and if you've got that, then then you build upon them. But I think the fact that you have such inconsistency, and Fields has had inconsistency wherever he's been. He'd never had consistency in Chicago. They changed it up. How many times have they changed head coaches and all the coaches? And then you come into Pittsburgh and it's a different coaching, scheme again, that I don't think he's really gotten the fair shot to really show what he can do.
Katie, I'm so glad you brought that up. I really am. We'll put you in the GMTA category. Great minds think alike. Because he had that situation in Chicago. Nobody could have survived that situation. I give Caleb Williams credit that at least he had a halfway decent season. And now that he's going to get Ben Johnson and as a coach with that group, that Caleb Williams has a chance to make it instead of being a bust. Because at one point, I admit, I thought he'd be a bust in the league based on the current coaching staff. I won't say that anymore with Ben Johnson, but Justin Fields, if he's had any luck, has been no luck at all. Come on, give the guy another year under Tomlin and the current coaching staff, and if by chance he doesn't make it next year, then you look toward the future. Well, you got to give this guy an opportunity. I think he's a very athletic, talented quarterback. The kid can run with his legs, has a pretty decent arm, but give him some weapons, give him a running game, give him a passing game. I'm not ready to give up on Justin Fields by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not, and we'll see where it goes. You never know. Maybe the Steelers will find a quarterback in day 2 or 3 that they could bring in to help the quarterback room, but we won't know. How many times have you drafted a quarterback later in the draft and they panned out? We talk about all these first-round quarterbacks, but what about the ones that are drafted in day 2 and 3? And that's why the scouting combine gives you an idea. The pro days finish it off, and then we find out what happens when they go to Green Bay in April.
Yeah, well, so the thing is you got to remember the Steelers did have a plan from day one to go with Russell Wilson.
Right.
Like their plan wasn't to use Fields at all, actually. Mm-hmm. It's just Wilson did some stupid Wilson stuff and decided to do some running back drills and hurt himself.
plus the fumbling.
Right.
Plus fumbles didn't help.
Well, they didn't, but, that's how he missed those first games, was he was actually hurt.
Right.
They said in the preseason that he's our guy. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there wasn't a clear picture. It's just Wilson gets in his own way a lot.
Now, again, we're going to talk about Russell Wilson at a later date, but I'm glad you brought him up, Bo, for the sake of talking about Justin Fields. That's a different situation. Mike Tomlin, I think if there's ever a year he'll be under scrutiny, it'll be to find out what he has at quarterback this year. And he has to try to win with Fields. He's going to keep that winning. Having not had a losing season. So I think the microscope will be a lot on Mike Tomlin. But that does it for this topic. Like I said, this show can be a little bit fast tonight, and we'll make sure that Bo was pleasantly surprised that he won't have to get off the air any quicker than he has to, because he might even be able to have a meal after we get done in the next couple of minutes. With that said, I have to only say one thing, and I only have the word on this one. Happy birthday to Wayne Fontes, the former Lions coach. February 17th, 1940, turns 85. I had the good opportunity to go out there and watch Wayne Fontes coach with Barry Sanders. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I know from being there, that to me, Barry Sanders does not retire early if Wayne Fontes is his coach, period. Nobody's going to debate me on that. I will tell you right now, Barry Sanders wanted no part of Bobby Ross. He didn't. He looked at Wayne Fontes as a father figure. If anybody watched Barry Sanders' induction ceremony, who's he throwing the ball to? He's giving it to Wayne Fontes. I don't have to read between the lines, be a philosopher or any of that business, okay? Barry Sanders and Wayne Fontes, to me, are what they were. And Wayne Fontes had a lesson over at training camp. If you ever hit Barry Sanders because he put a red jersey on him and you knock him to the ground, you will be cut, period. That's all there is to it. You will be cut, and that, period. So if that doesn't tell me Wayne Fontes loving him there. And I want to tell everybody a real story real quick. When I was living in Tampa, I mentioned this the other night. I'll mention it to this group here too. And when the Lions played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were division rivals, and the Lions would lose to the Bucs. Wayne Fonce's son Mike and I and a bunch of friends would go over to Hooters right across the street. I would get totally hammered, but little do people realize that, because when the Lions lose, it was bad, especially when the Bucks weren't very good. The moral of the story was I did get hammered a little bit, had to go to the Tampa Tribune, write my story, turned out to write a great story. My editor said, man, that's a heck of a story. What did you do to write this one? Well, the Lions lost and, had a few extra beers, Rick. I hope I'm not going to get trouble. Scott, you know what? We have a good relationship here. If you're going to drink like this and write this good, I'm not saying nothing. I'll take the Sergeant Schultz one. I know nothing. Yeah, Cyberewski, I know about Hooters filing for bankruptcy, but that's corporate. That doesn't have anything to do with the franchise at all. We actually found that out on Sunday, right, Candy? It's corporate. It's not franchise, but I knew that when I brought this up, you're going to bring that in. So there's your rebuttal there. So that's my Barry Sanders and Wayne Vaught story. And it's final.
There's a lot of good writing that happens when you're altered. I mean, Pink Floyd made an entire career out of it.
Well, that is great, Bo. If there's ever a master for words, you definitely were hit with that one. I'm just telling you.
Scott, can I tell Bo one thing?
Sure.
Yeah, what you got?
You got one thing right about the Steelers when they played the Falcons in week 1. Boswell made all the points by kicking field goals. Don't forget about that. So you can't remember that. So you were right about not scoring points early so we didn't know what Justin Fields was all about because Boswell made all the points.
No, and that was my thing is, you're not moving the ball particularly well, right? You're moving it enough to kick field goals. The defense scored points. So although they went down as wins, right, it kind of reminds me a lot of Jimmy G.
Right.
Like he has a winning percentage that's impressive. And if that's the only number you look at, it's great. But if you watch him play football, you're like, oh, yeah, they win, but not because of him.
Right.
So,
that's what I want to point that out.
My thing with Fields is, when you watch him play, super athletic guy, right? No question. And has decent arm strength. But what his issue is he has a hard time hitting anybody deeper than 10 air yards.
He hit George Pickens 20, 30 yards one play.
I understand he has one-offs. Like we could all hit him once or twice, right? The problem is he's not consistent at it. Yes. Where he is generally good is throwing to the flat and to out routes and slants and somewhere within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. And that's not a championship caliber guy. And do I think that he can be developed into something? Sure. Do I think that the league has gotten away from actually developing quarterbacks? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And so that is probably one of the biggest shortcomings of the league today is they just don't develop quarterbacks anymore because everybody's so afraid of getting fired after 1 year that they need somebody to just go out there and make it happen. And so like Brady said, a couple months ago, they're dumbing the playbooks down because these kids aren't given the chance to learn. And these coaching staffs aren't given the latitude to let them learn. So you have to go out there and be great or you're gone.
Well, you know what? The show ends on Bo's note. He's got the final word for the show. It really does because you made a ton of sense. There's no question. It's a win now league is what it is. When teams, owners get their new toy, they want to play with it right away. Development is not part of the picture. And as a result, that's how it is. But Bo, the show ends on that note. And with that said, you're the first one who gets to mention how they get a hold of you.
So you can find me here most Tuesday nights on Roku TV 5 days a week and coming in March on 99.1 radio in Atlanta.
Great stuff. Glad to have you as my co-host, Bo. You've been loyal to the show for a long time. I'm glad you've been here. We've seen a lot together, haven't we? See the big crews, the small crews, and now this is a good model, especially for the off season. You could look forward to a lot more of these type of 4 people shows, especially during the off season, where we just keep it down. And like Bo said, we got to scale back the playbook, and that's what we do. The only time we won't do it is we have a timely video that we need from the Super Bowl or wherever, and we'll incorporate that into the topic aspect. All right, Pendleton, go ahead.
You can find me here on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, Sports Exchange and Fire Up. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Pensman Sports. And you can find me on X, which is stupid, but you can find me there at Pensman Sports too.
Tell me how you really feel. Thanks a lot for I appreciate you going out there, Pensman, and sharing the content. Much appreciated. All right, Candy.
No problem.
station break and the night is over. And Bo, what did I tell you, Bo? Did I say 9 o'clock would be really easy?
Yep.
How am I doing with the time?
Doing good. Doing good.
There you go. All right, Katie, wrap it up.
Flown in way under.
So now, well, it depends. If I decided to like go off on a whole tangent, just kidding. So
The time's in your hands.
Yeah, that's right.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morgan Roth. It talks about his 40 plus years in the business and how it has changed so much over those 40 plus years. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find a plethora of great content, so go check it out. There's also a link to our merchandise store. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, you just never know what we're going to be talking about. So tune in to find out. Tuesday nights, typically before this show, Chicks and Salsa. You can listen to me and my chicks talking sports. Then let's see what else. Scott, if you want to advertise, call that man. Call him. 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest on one of these shows or you have topic ideas that you want us to cover, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Scott, I think I covered it.
Yeah, you did
It
fine.
didn't take 20 minutes either.
No, that's okay. We're doing really well on the time. So I want to
2 minutes.
Yeah. Special thanks to Eddie Prather, Cyberhuski. And I also have to give an indirect thanks to Rod Peterson for coming up with the lead tonight about would you rather watch or pull over an NFL combine. Next time I talk to him about it, I'll let him know. But this thing's going to get up probably right away on Twitter tomorrow. I have no choice. This is as timely as it gets. So kudos to you, Rod Peterson, for even giving me an idea. At least he came up with one idea. You know, Rod Peterson's an interesting bird, but actually tonight I give him credit for how this thing started and how it's going to end. So once again, if you missed this episode, especially the comedic aspect of the whole thing, watch it again. Would you rather watch a tractor pull over an NFL combine? The choice is yours. We're always welcome to comments on next Tuesday night's edition of Inside the Fiction. So on behalf of Candy Ebling, Bo Crouch, and Pensman Sports, my name is Scott Morgan, Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Fiction. And I said Motor City Madmouth, not Soda City Madmouth. And if you want to get tied up with the S's, you just did. So Motor City Madmouth, take care, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday night. Have a great week. Bye now.